Welcome back, everybody. Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, today we're going to be talking a little bit about the prices of Milsurps. Have the prices on Milsurps gotten completely out of control? Um, you know, some would say yes, some would say no. I mean, I guess it just really depends on what you're looking at, but it's really not uncommon knowledge that over the years, military surplus rifles, shotguns, and pistols have gotten very popular and have seen an increased, wave of popularity amongst many people, and that comes down to many reasons. Many reasons, as in video games using more milsurps and more kind of vintage, let's just say vintage themed video games and media and movies and things, which bring a lot of these things to the forefront that people didn't know about, and that increases interest. Particularly in some of the younger folks who are using these. Like Martini Henrys and Battlefield and things like that. That makes these guns a lot more popular because now people want to experience them, and that's good. From a historical standpoint, it's great to see a lot of the younger generation embracing the idea of enjoying history and enjoying a piece of history that you can take out and actually shoot and enjoy and really, kind of get an idea what those soldiers were going through when they were in these battles and things. And that's always been my interest in military surplus. But has the window on this closed, or the door rather, closed so badly that it puts these things completely out of touch for average people to collect and afford and achieve a collection of? It depends. Okay. Now, some of you may not be old enough to remember the days when you could buy SKSs for, $150. Okay. Some of you probably don't remember when you could buy, Mosin Nagant M9130s for what, $79, $50. In fact, I think the first one that I picked up was literally $49 at a gun show. Okay. So we're talking, these things used to be dirt cheap. I mean, $50 wasn't a small amount of money, but it also wasn't a lot. It was still an amount of money that you could just kind of throw at it. And we're talking the 90s. Maybe mid to late 90s, even earlier. I mean, when you're talking in the 80s, yeah, you could buy a brand new Norinco SKS in the box with all the oiler and sling and everything for $200, something like that. I mean, so that was very affordable, right? And, those guns now, if you've got a Norinco SKS in the box, in the Cosmoline, unfired, in the same condition it was in when it was imported in the 80s, and as you know, they cut off Chinese imports, which didn't help the prices. But you're talking an SKS that could bring over $1,000. So you're talking 5 times the value of what it originally cost when it came into the country. Now, of course, with demand increasing and supply decreasing, thus the price raises. So it's more of a supply and demand issue than it even is the value of the actual items going up. And that may just be intrinsically true about guns in general, okay? It's just absolutely crazy to think that, like a K31 service rifle. Okay, this is that Martini Henry that we were holding earlier. Many of you that played the Battlefield games, people love that particular rifle because it's a one-shot kill in the game or whatever. I think they've dumbed down the power of that rifle. But anyway, it's just interesting to see all these kids yelling at each other when they're playing on the chat rooms in Battlefield and sniping each other with the Martini Henry. Anyway, let's look at a K31. Okay, this is a Swiss K31. It's a straight pull Swiss service rifle. This one was made in 1942. In the day of the K31, they cost 42 Swiss francs to manufacture. That's absolutely freaking crazy to think about when you compare 42 Swiss francs in the 40s to now. I don't remember which particular university did a study, but there was a study that was done at some point about vintage military rifles versus modern rifles. And for instance, if we were to build this rifle today, okay, if we went to Remington or whoever, let's use Remington as an example. If we went to Remington and we handed them this rifle and we said, make this exactly the same quality, the same steel, the same everything, all that, I guarantee you this rifle right now would cost over $4,000 to make. You can bet this would be a $4,000 gun if a company had to make it. Now, it's kind of this weird concept that like Mark Novak and I have discussed over the years of, deferred value, deferred maintenance, it's deferred value. Now, the reason I'm holding a K31 is because this is actually still a rifle that's quite affordable. I've been going through and liquidating some of my gun collection to make room for some other pieces. Plus, I'm redoing some things in the studio here and making some room to have some other guests and things come in and do podcasts with me. So I've been liquidating some stuff to kind of help pay for some remodeling on the house and studio and etc. Anyway, point is, I've been holding on to my Swiss rifles. Why have I not been selling my Swiss rifles? Because they're not really bringing as much money as I would think. I mean, you can still get an affordable K31. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why I still have a pile of them, because I'm not quite ready to pull the trigger on these yet and get rid of any of them, because I don't feel that the price is anywhere near what these guns are really worth. You can still get a K31 now for $450 to $500, which, I think is a pretty fair price considering that early on when these things were initially imported. I want to say that SOG, or what was it? It was I forget that company that it was. It was a mail order catalog company that was selling these things. Samco Global out of Florida. They're not in business anymore. But Sarco or Samco. Anyway, I can't remember. There's so many of those import companies. But I think it was Samco Global Arms or Sarco Global Arms. I can't remember the exact name of the company. But anyway, that company, which is now out of business, they imported a metric ton of these rifles. And I remember that not only did they import a bunch of these rifles, they had a serial number service. You could actually track serial numbers through their system, and you could request a certain serial number range, okay? You could literally contact the people through email and say, hey, I see here in the log that you have serial number, consecutive serial number, yada, yada through yada, yada. Hey, I'm a collector. I want to buy that range of serial numbers. And you could actually just request, hey, I want all these serial numbers. And they would sell you consecutive serial number K31s. Okay, now if you got a batch of 5 or 6 consecutive serial number K31s with matching bayonets, okay, yeah, you're sitting on some money right there, okay? And, if they all got troop tags. Anyway, I digress. The point is, the bubble hasn't really bust on these guns yet. And they're fantastic. They're very accurate. They are, in my opinion, some of the finest military surplus rifles available. Okay, let's look at another gun that is still pretty affordable. And I actually don't... Should I talk about this one? Because if I do, now everybody's going to want them, and then the price is going to go up. See, that's the danger of me making these videos where we talk about, well, are Milsurp prices out of control? Yeah, because of people like me, okay? I'm not helping the situation. I'm hurting. However, I am helping because I like educating people about what's out there. I think that Milsurp should be a type of gun that are achievable, especially for younger shooters who want to get into some cool historical guns, Martini Henrys, let's go back to that. They're still available, okay? Places like International Military Antiques, they still have these things. Now, the prices have gone up a bit, but they're still relatively achievable, especially if you get an untouched version that is still on the Cosmoline and it's got yak grease all over it and you're willing to clean it up yourself, which I have a full video on cleaning one of these up. Why pay for the cleaned up one? You can get the untouched version, follow my video, and save yourself about $250, $300. Why not do that, right? Hey, wink, wink, just saying. All right, here's a gun that, so I got rid of a lot of my Mausers because I was trying to kind of downsize, and a couple of the Mausers in my collection that I wound up keeping, I kept my Persian because, whew, boy, is it beautiful. It's such a nice rifle. I was like holding that gun thinking, there's no way I can get rid of this rifle. It's so nice. But the other gun is my my Portuguese Mauser. This is a 1904 Vaquero Mauser, but it's not really a Mauser. It's sort of a modified type of Mauser action that's based on kind of like a Mannlicher Mauser hybrid, this rifle is. And what I've always been intrigued about with this particular rifle, the 1904, is it's a short rifle. It has the same type of sight protector as a K31 and a M39, which I always thought was pretty intriguing. It's got a lightweight barrel, and the whole, vibe of the gun is very slim, and it's a very lightweight rifle that's easy to shoot from the shoulder offhand, and it's got a real nice bolt throw on it, okay? Does this one have a safety lug? It doesn't. It looks like it's only a 2-lug gun. So So that's one area that it's different than a Mauser. But these guns are still relatively affordable. The Portuguese Mausers. 8mm, still shoots the same cartridge as a Mauser. But you know what? After owning K31 and a Gewehr 98 and all the various Mauser rifles that I've had over the years, you know, I kind of find myself liking this one more. And they're affordable. They're way more affordable than a German Mauser. What you're paying for with a German Mauser is the history. With this, you know, these kind of fly under the radar. And what's wrong with that? Okay. You can still pick these up for about $400, which, hey, maybe not now, but they're available. And they're light and handy, accurate rifles that you can still buy. So if you're looking for a bolt gun to shoot 8mm, that's a great option, okay? I feel like I'm obligated to talk a little bit about M39 service rifles. So this is a Finnish M39. It looks like a Mosin Nagant, which I guess it kind of is really, but it does depart from the standard M9130 in a lot of different ways. And I'm not going to necessarily go into all of those differences in today's video. But what you should just basically know at a bird's eye level is that these guns are considerably more rare than their Russian counterparts. I mean, we're talking 9130s. They produced, what was it, like 42 million or 44 million, like some obscene number of 9130s that they produced, versus M39s are, I mean, I think the total production is like less than 250,000. 275,000, something like that. I've got Rifles of the Snow over there. Doug Bowser's book, Rifles of the Snow, gives you a lot of different information on these guns. I would encourage you to pick that up if you're looking at collecting M39s, because it gives a very detailed amount of data on all of the stuff that's out there with these guns. Anyway, point is, some are more rare than others, but generally, though, if you compare M39 production to 9130 production, this gun is way more rare. Way more rare. If they only made like 275,000 of these, what, maybe 400,000 at most. I think maybe like 275,000 units, something like that. And they made 44 million 9130s. What would you rather have? Would I rather, okay, right now the price on M9130s is inflated. Okay, they're like $350, $400 for a standard M9130 that they made 44 million of. Okay, now if there's certain markings or makers or serial number range you're trying to find for collection purposes, okay, yeah, you're going to pay more for it. But an M39, all these suckers are expensive. And when I say expensive, though, is it really? Is it really? Because thing is, yeah, on the low end, an M39 service rifle will bring about $550 on the low end. A beater will bring $500 all day long. On the upper end, I've seen some of these sell for over $1,000, okay? Maybe it's because someone was looking for that specific serial number because they own the twin to it. That actually happened to me. I sold an M39. The buyer said, oh my God, you have the one serial number up from my existing M39. And of course, he was willing to pay a handsome price to have that exact gun to go with his other matching M39. So now he has two consecutive serial numbered M39s. Now, that may not necessarily be everyone's situation, but that's why you never know when you're selling a Milsurp who is looking at it and for what reason, all right? Someone might want that gun for a very specific reason. Maybe it's got a certain mark they want, a certain make they want, a certain serial number range, a certain feature, a certain cartouche. So there's so many variables that go into what actually brings the value in these guns that you have to be knowledgeable about them to know what you're really looking at. I remember when I got all of these M39s, I'm down to, I might have a dozen left or something, but at one point I had over 40 of these things, okay? And I remember when I bought a bunch of these, I got them for a really good price, and I sorted through hundreds of guns by hand and picked every single one of these guns out by hand for a very, very, very specific reason. Using the book and looking at serial number ranges to know which makes and models that they produce the least amount of. So you have rarity within rarity. Anyway, without getting off on some crazy long-winded tangent, the point that I'm trying to make is, have Milsurp prices gone up? I don't think the answer is necessarily yes. I think that people have become more educated about military surplus rifles, which has therefore made certain ones be more valuable due to the expanded knowledge base that people have about them and the expanded amount of interest in these items that people have. So, There are still a lot of affordable military surplus rifles out there that you can get. I showed you a few examples. Okay, are you going to buy a $79 M9130 now? No, you're not. Are you going to buy a $200 SKS? Those days are gone. Forget it. Are you going to buy a $599 Romanian PSL? Remember, y'all? Some of y'all are old enough to remember when Romanian PSLs were $599. That's freaking crazy. My PSL over there, I guarantee you, because it's an original Kujier from the 90s, I guarantee you that PSL is worth every penny of $1,800 to maybe even $2,000. We're talking for a freaking PSL. We're talking for a Romanian PSL, which is not even an SVD. Never mind SVDs. SVDs, you used to be able to buy a Chinese Tiger for like $1,200 in the crate with all the case candy. Now, shoot, forget it. 5,000, 6,000, maybe more, depending on the quality of the gun and all the case candy. So, it's just one of those things where people have become more knowledgeable, and the amount of people who wish to collect these commodities has increased, and the interest level has increased, and there's a limited supply. So it's a supply and demand issue, but it's also an issue of, not an issue, I think it's a good thing that more people are knowledgeable about what they're buying to the point that they know which ones are worth more and which ones are not. Okay. You do have a lot of unscrupulous sellers that will just put some random price on a gun and think that they're going to get it. But a knowledgeable buyer can go to that person and go, well, I like this gun. Maybe I want it as a shooter, but here's why I can't pay you what you're asking. There's a big difference between ripe internet prices and what an item actually really sells for. So just keep that in mind. If you go to a gun show and you see a Milsurp on the table and they've got it priced astronomically high, the reason they have it priced astronomically high is because they don't know what it's worth, and they're counting on you to drop an offer. Okay, never pay what is on the freaking ticket. Now, there's probably people that go to gun shows and have tables and go, oh, shut up, Eric. Listen to me. They will take less. They will take less. Put that on a freaking shirt, okay? They will always take less. Cash talks, right? Bull crap walks. If there's a price on a Milsurp especially if somebody's there selling an estate, you can get that gun for a lot less money. Don't let them bully you. Trust me, they will take less. They will take a lot less, and they'll take a lot less if you're willing to buy more than one. Quick story, okay? I'll give you a quick story and I'll let you guys get to it. I know this video is pushing 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep them shorter, but when I talk about Milsurps, I get long-winded. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was at a gun show one time, and I'm not going to say the person's name, but let's just say they're well-respected, great colleague of mine, and people I've known for years, and they buy a lot of estates, okay? And they service a lot of estates, and they'll bring these Milsurps to the gun shows and sell them on behalf of the estate. Or they'll make the estate an offer, a cash offer, which they normally take because most people don't know what the stuff's worth, and they usually just want it gone. They'll make a cash offer, and then they'll come to the gun show and they'll try to, I hate to tell the side of the business, but they more or less try to flip them and make some quick money off of them and then go on to the next batch, because there are a lot of people of that generation that collect this kind of stuff that are passing away on the regular. And if you know the circles of people that you can contact and buy these estates out, you can have a pretty good rolling, income of flipping these guns at gun shows and buying out estates and things like that. And there's people that's all they do for a living is, they have a license and they buy out estates. All right. Anyway, point in case story. I'm getting to the story, but I have to set up the background. I walk up to this table and there's a bunch of Finnish M39s and Finnish M91 service rifles. Okay. And I saw a couple of rare marked ones. I'm like, okay, there's the money. That's the one that's worth $1,000. They don't know that because they got it priced for $499. They got it priced for $400. And I'm thinking, all right, here we go. And I go in and I'm like, all right, here's a couple of really nice M91s. One of them has Austrian capture marking. I know that gun's worth a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. Hey, here's an M39 with a straight stock. Okay, cool. Civil Guard, serial number range. So see, again, knowledge is power. There's a big difference between a $500 M39 and an $800 or $900 or $1,000 M39. Anyway, long story short, $3,000 later, I'm leaving with about 8 of these guns. Okay. And the average price, I mean, I scored those things. I think the ticket on them was between $400 and $500 a piece. And I offered, I believe, 3 for the lot or something like that. So I ended up buying like 8 or 10 guns. And I think they threw in a helmet or something cool like that. I mean, of course, with the States, there's always going to be some case candy and crap sitting around. Sweeten the deal. Get that World War I helmet or get that like weird looking trench art shell that's, play hardball. Do not ever pay what's on the ticket. I'm telling you, they will take less by at least a margin of 20 to 25%. If there's $500 on that tag, you better offer $350 because all they can say is no. So have the prices on Milsurps. Again, get back to the original question. Have the prices on Milsurps gotten crazy? No. You just need to be a more savvy buyer. You need to be educated. You need to play hardball. You need to talk brass tacks. Cash talks, okay? Those are all very important things. As the supply decreases and the demand increases, yes, the prices will go up. But if you're savvy and you play your cards right and you're you got a sharp spine, you can still score a great deal. You just got to know what you're looking at. Thanks, y'all. Many more videos on the way. I've got so many things I'm doing. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.